Hello and welcome to this week's reading. We decided to do a general reading for the astrology.
We focus this reading on the astrology for the rest of this year because so much is happening. A lot of it's in the United States, but it impacts the entire world. Even though it's hard to conceive of this when you look at the people that we have running this country, they are kind of the most powerful people on earth.
So if you're having trouble navigating these strange waters, contact us and we'll give you a tarot reading and an astrology reading if you want. So we'll be a bit brief with the cards today since the astrology reading is a bit long. Let's get to it. So the root card, the root to this whole situation is not surprising. We got the Chariot, a card that was very prominent in the Israel reading from last week too. Humanity is at war, and of course there are literal wars going on, but it's also an energetic war. It's a war with like the old system versus what is to come. It's a war between the archons or the deep state and the people.
Everything in this reading grows out of the root card, and this is a card of travel. I mean, some sort of a journey, and as you'll see when we end up, it's been a hell of a journey, but we've got more to go.
Absolutely. We see that in the signifier, which is the Wheel of Fortune, another card that's been popping up a lot, and this has to do with the big shift that's going on. So we're going through this period where the wheel is spinning, and it's kind of up to us where the arrow lands, but we are in any regard moving away from the old. The old cannot remain.
This card is massive change, and it's change that's uncertain, and it's up to us whether we end up on top of the wheel or underneath the wheel. And some people will end up underneath the wheel. Some power structures will end up underneath the wheel. That's what the astrology says. I mean, we're going through epic astrological changes in the next few months. We need to have personal sovereignty so we don't end up underneath the wheel, because it's up to us whether we're on top of it or underneath it. We can't help other people make their own decisions. We have to just make our own.
The fear now is the moon, and it's modified by the Seven of Pentacles. I think people are kind of scared of looking everything in the eye right now. They're scared of the secrets that are coming out. They're scared of the truth and the realities of the theater they've been taking a part of. They're afraid of kind of coming to terms with it. And I think in this case, the Seven of Pentacles is a bit of an avoidance card. It's like everything is collapsing. The people are like, oh, I'll just continue doing my routine. I'll just stay in my program. Of course,
everything's fine.
Everything is fine. And that's not for everyone, right? There are people that are conscious, that are preparing for this, that are ready for this. But the majority of people are still kind of in denial. So I think the fear is related to kind of doing what they can to avoid.
This is secrets coming up from the depths. This is something coming up from behind us. And it's frightening. It's terrifying. And it requires hard work. And we're afraid of what's hidden in the depths, but we're also afraid of doing the hard work of facing those fears and living through them and coming out the other side, which is exactly what we have to do.
Yeah, it's like, if this is true, what does that mean? What kind of actions do I have to take instead of the actions I've taken?
And we want to move ahead. We want to get out of this. This is our desires. This is moving into a calmer, peaceful place. We really want to do that, but again, it's going to take a little bit of work.
Yeah, and not just work, like coming to agreements, because if we have to reorganize ourselves as a collective, we can't be in fear mode. We can't be all freaking out, which people will be for a period, because it's going to be quite shocking.
They're going to be losing their shit.
Yeah, and that's a hard place to create something new from. So there will be a period when everyone agrees that, okay, we need to move forward, we need to make changes, but it will be difficult to land on something in the initial phase of this.
But we can do that right now. This is the overall situation.
The Nine of Pentacles.
We're in a place of strength right now. This is a powerful card. This woman has worked hard in her life. She's gotten to a place where she can be comfortable, and she deserves to be comfortable. So do we. But the gateway, we have to act on that. This is active, passionate motion forward.
So it's this combination of like people coming to terms of, well, what do I actually have around me? Which resources do I have and how can I use them? think it's also a message about if you have money right now, we don't know what that money is going to be worth, like say 8 months from now. So maybe spend that money into like actual tangible resources that you can use when things are chaotic.
I mean, maybe physical gold and silver, maybe property if you have a lot of money. Maybe if you don't have a lot of money, you buy a whole pile of rice and beans.
In the present moment, we have the devil. And I think this is symbolizing the archons, the powers that were, that are really clinging to the old system. They're really clinging to the power they have over us and utilizing it to their greatest extents. And people are starting to notice, kind of like what's happening in the UK with them emptying the prisons to make space for people that say things the government doesn't like
on social media. Yeah, they're emptying violent criminals. I think they were going to release like 7,000 violent criminals to make room for people who pissed off the powers that be on social media.
Yeah, so this is us right now. That's only because we kind of are still in this agreement with the devil that we don't remember signing the agreement, but we kind of did by just coming here. So we need to start looking at how we can get out of these chains.
Break those chains. And the astrology right now, I mean, we're going through an astrological, I don't know if you'd call it an earthquake, a tsunami, or maybe a volcanic eruption, but it's crazy. And something's beginning right now. This is the astrological energy. And it's modified by the King of Cups. And that means compassionate masculine energy.
So action, but from the heart center.
We'll have to have some passion behind our action. I mean, a few heads might roll, but
I think it's kind of the energy that's beneath it. Like the King of Cups, the cups have more to do with like the emotional and the spiritual aspect. So we might have to there might be actions that need to be done in the physical, but beneath it, there's this need for freedom and alignment.
On October 9th, every outer planet will briefly go retrograde. Pluto goes direct October 12th, but it will still be in Capricorn until November 19th. So the period between October 9th and November 19th will be an epic shit show. That just happens to be when the other epic shit show of 2024 occurs, the US presidential election. The big event for the collective is Pluto retrograding back into Capricorn for a final time. Pluto last transited through Capricorn between January 9th, 1762 and December 2nd, 1778. That period saw the beginning of the United States, which would become the next empire. This was also the beginning of the end of the British Empire. When Pluto first entered Capricorn, England was in the final year of a 7-year war with France. A year later, France surrendered all of its land east of the Mississippi River to Britain. When Pluto transitioned into Aquarius completely, England found itself unable to defeat the insurgency in the colonies. Though it would take nearly 3 more years before the English were finally driven from the United States, that was because the Brits knew that losing the colonies would ultimately prove fatal for Great Britain as an empire, so they continued to fight a losing war until it was no longer possible to do so. We're likely to see a similar pattern this time around. Only the United States will be the dying empire that continues fighting a lost war simply because the consequences of defeat will prove too great. Right now, the real war is more economical than traditional, at least for people not trapped in the hot battlegrounds of Palestine and the Ukraine, where the dying empire of Israel, the tail that wags the dog, and the United States, the dog, are fighting proxy wars to preserve the hegemony of the US dollar and international monetary exchange in the petroleum market. With the economic center of the world switching away from the US-Israeli axis and towards the BRICS countries, and with BRICS countries abandoning the petrodollar and the SWIFT international monetary exchange system without fear of suffering the same consequences as Iraq and Libya suffered when they tried doing this a generation earlier, the US-Israeli empire has been defeated. The entropy of our dying collective ego is the only thing powering the war machine at this point. Pluto's 16-year transit through Capricorn has been a cycle of authoritarianism and greed. These final months of this cycle will be the greed head's last money shot. Pluto's transit through Aquarius, which won't be completed until January 19th, 2044, will mark the opening of a new play in this theater of the absurd. The last time Pluto passed through Aquarius was between December 2nd, 1778 and December 27th, 1798, the period that saw the French Revolution. In 1789, French peasants stormed the Bastille. Louis XVI, the idiot man-child sitting on the French throne, tried to distract the peasant mobs by starting a war with Austria. But by January 1793, the peasants had had enough and put Louis to the blade, beginning Robespierre's Reign of Terror, an 18-month period that saw the streets of Paris turn to rivers of the blood of the oligarchy. When Pluto finally left Aquarius for good in 1799, Napoleon Bonaparte overthrew the government and declared himself emperor, beginning an entirely new shit show. We're seeing similar themes playing out now as Pluto ends a 16-year transit through Capricorn and begins a 20-year transit through Aquarius, only they're playing out in a vastly different medium. The last time the wrecking ball of Pluto crashed into Aquarius, it brought down an oligarchy of European royals inbred to the point of idiocy. Back then it was replaced by people who were driven, at least initially, by the egalitarian concept of democracy. Over the past centuries, that group has devolved into a bunch of self-serving greedheads subservient to a corporate oligarchy. Just as before, heads will roll, but this time the collapse is happening much quicker because of the impossibly fast speed at which information is transmitted. Last time around, the state of the art in information transmission was the carrier pigeon. Today, if Marie Antoinette told us peasants to eat cake, it would be broadcast live on YouTube to 1 billion people. We don't know what is about to go down, but it will probably involve the US elections, and we can be relatively sure that when the shithammer comes down, it will come down fast. I normally focus on the outer planets for collective readings because the inner planets move through the zodiac so quickly. But during the next 8 months, Mars will spend almost 7 months in Cancer because of its retrograde, making it act more like an outer planet. And Mars in Cancer is not a happy Mars. Mars is the Terminator and Cancer is when Harry met Sally. The warrior planet Mars likes to kick ass, but in compassionate Cancer it becomes a people-pleasing codependent. As a collective, we'll become conflict avoidant and passive-aggressive, afraid to act now because we fear reliving the trauma our actions caused during our childhoods. Mars's direct passage through Cancer will be between September 4th and November 3rd, almost exactly the same period that Pluto will be back in Capricorn. Because of that, it will seem like the reptiles are regaining power, and we'll likely begin to fear them again. But Mars will move into Leo on November 3rd, a couple of days before the US elections, and as a collective we'll regain our footing. Next year we'll still have to process that childhood trauma when Mars retrogrades into Cancer for 4 months, but by then the reptilian oligarchs will be reduced to reacting, not acting, like King George towards the end of the American Revolution, and things aren't likely to end well for the reptiles. When Mars retrograded and spent 7 months in Cancer in 1945-46, we saw the Nuremberg trials for crimes against humanity. Given some of the information that's come out regarding certain medical procedures that billions of people were forced to take, it's possible that we might see something very much like that happening again before Mars leaves Cancer in April of next year.
Okay, so for our psychological future, this is no surprise. We got the Hangman. This is being in an uncomfortable spot where we're forced to reflect upon things and forced to think about, okay, what do we need to give up in order to move forward? And a lot of people are going to find themselves there because a lot of the kind of the conveniences and the positive aspects, I guess, from the old world will be slipping away, and they'll be realizing that, hey, if I'm going to like keep all of that, I'll have to continue this contract with this guy.
Yeah.
And that's going to be tough because we have a lot of habits and addictions, and I think we're a bit more tied to the system than we like to admit.
Yeah, I mean...
But it needs to be done. It's very important. So...
If you have to get a experimental medical procedure that will basically shorten your life by about 90% just to go to the theater, You might want to sacrifice going to the theater.
Yeah, read some books, you know, find other pleasures. We got this won't be easy, by the way. We got the 10 of Wands in the future, and this is carrying a heavy burden, but it's kind of also an ending. So it's like, okay, this is like the last mile I have to walk with this burden from the old world, and I can't really see what's in front of me. I can't see whatever good or bad is ahead. I'm too busy focusing on the heavy burden I'm carrying. And I think it'll be kind of hard to look beyond it, but I think we need to tune into this too and like realize the abundance that the earth actually holds, and that the system that's been created with like things that break easily, food that's genetically modified, like we can actually do better. We've just been shown a world that's in constant lack, because that's how they want us to feel, so that they can rule over us.
The final outcome, the Five of Pentacles.
Not a surprise.
Basically, that's poverty. But
Yeah.
what this is saying in this reading is that if you value the artificial fiat currency, the ones and zeros that aren't backed by anything but, you know, some half-wit politician that doesn't know what day it is, telling you that it's valuable, it's going to be a rough time. It's going to be rough for all of us. We've all got a lot of work to do. We've all got to make sacrifices. But
the modifier, though, is the Fool. This is the first card in the deck. This is newness. This is somebody who, I don't know what's going to come next, but I'm ready for it, right? So we kind of, at one point, have to move out of this, oh no, none of my money is worth anything anymore, and realize, like, well, what do you want from your money? What is it that you need from that money? Like, how can you fulfill that need in different ways?
you might take your plastic card to the empty grocery stores and, you know, find no food, and then what little bit you find, you try to pay for it with this piece of plastic and nothing happens. You might have to just walk away from that and take a leap of faith and maybe go plant a garden.
Yeah. Or go out hunting.
Yeah, or do something.
Yeah.
If you have a skill, if you can help somebody and trade them for some eggs or something.
I think there will be a period where people start to revalue trading as it used to be done. And that's what's going to free us from the old system, I guess. Eventually, it's going to take a little while, but...
One thing we can be relatively sure of, it's not going to be boring.
Okay, thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe, comment if there's anything you want us to do a reading on, and we'll check with the cards. We oftentimes try to do a layout with the readings that people want, but if the story isn't that clear, we don't film it, but we'll still give it a try. Then we hope to see you in our next video.